if you're a woman in your 40s or 50s, when was the last time that you truly felt at home in your body and you actually slept at night?
I like to refer to as puberty in reverse. You're learning a brand new body. Testosterone is not a male hormone. There's no such thing as male or female hormones. Can we stop demonizing carbs?
You need carbs. Your brain runs on glucose.
Food in our stomach, our body's going to focus on digestion, and it's going to keep you awake. This is a hill I will die on because...
Hello and welcome to Sleep is My Waking Passion, the podcast where we get real about sleep and how it shapes your life. I'm Dr. Alison Kole, a triple-boarded pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine physician who's learned to thrive despite having chronic insomnia. And now I'm here to help you do the same. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I have a really cool show today. By the way, I am sipping, it's the morning, and so I can still have caffeine, and I am sipping my coffee with my creatine, and I also mix in this collagen powder. I don't know if that does anything. We'll talk about that, but I am caffeinating, and so this topic is going to be all about, quite simply, nutrition in perimenopause, menopause. So if you're a woman in your 40s or 50s, I want you to think about this for a second. When was the last time that you truly felt at home in your body and you actually slept at night? Ask yourself that. This is what I've been seeing in my clinic for sure. Women, we're smart, we're accomplished, we're doing all the right things, we're trying to eat the right things, we're seeing our waistline expand, our sleep, no matter what we do, we seem to struggle with it. And today we're going to really be focusing on nutrition. We are going to touch base on some sleep stuff. But I wanted to really, I've had Marissa Sharkey on the podcast before, and I wanted to bring her back because she's had some evolution in what she's doing, because we know that nearly half of women in perimenopause and beyond are dealing with huge sleep disturbances, yes, weight gain, especially in the parts that we don't want, and just, again, shifts in where we're carrying fat. This directly raises the risk of things like diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And now, to throw more confusion into the mix, we've got this whole new class of GLP-1 medications. They can be used for obesity. They can be used for overweight if you have one weight-related comorbid condition, meaning that you basically have other stuff going on and you happen to be overweight. You can use it for obstructive sleep apnea if you're talking specifically about Zepbound, because that has the clinical indication. So, how do we move the needle and moving all of us in the right direction in terms of our weight, our metabolic health? And then when it comes to women in midlife, where do we set that bar? When is it appropriate to really be thinking about GLP-1s as an adjunct to what we're doing, particularly since we have to weigh the pros and cons? You have to get the right nutritional support. And the key, too, is that with any of these medications where we're losing weight, there's always a significant risk of muscle loss, especially if we're not doing it in a healthy way. And muscle loss is a big deal because it's so hard to build muscle and stay strong as we age. So I am so excited today for today's guest. Marissa has been on the show, as I've mentioned. She and I have bonded because we've both taken care of the sickest of the sick in the intensive care unit. And she was always my go-to girl. I was like, all right, girl, we got somebody who needs some nutrition on board. I was always a very early adopter of when can we feed them? How about now? And sometimes it can't be oral, but how do we then add the nutrition back in, even if we can't use your gut? Because nutrition really matters for your longevity and your health. And so what she does now, even though both of us are no longer in the ICU, is she specifically helps all women in midlife. But if you are a nurse, if you're a healthcare professional, this is definitely in her wheelhouse of being able to help you kind of balance when we live in a very imbalanced life when we're in healthcare. Yes, we do. So she helps you navigate real life nutrition, weight changes, and body image. So this conversation, what we're going to be connecting the dots with are our hormones, our metabolism, our nutrition. We're going to throw in a little GLP-1 commentary because I'm very curious to hear what your sort of stance is on that. And yes, we're going to touch base on sleep, more in the nutritional side of things of what we can do to maximize our sleep. And hopefully this will leave you walking away from this conversation really feeling like you kind of understand a little bit more about what's happening in your body and what you might be able to put into action in the next 30, 60 days to make it happen. So if you've been lying awake wondering what the heck you do to get the wheels back on the bus because it feels like everything is, falling off, this is the episode for you. Marissa, welcome back, girlfriend. It's so great to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here, and I love chatting with you because you are just such a light. And I love what you do because you really advocate for women's health, and I appreciate your appreciation of nutrition too as a medical professional.
Yes, awesome. And because, as you know, sometimes some of us don't pay as much attention to it, right? It's like the afterthought.
Very true.
And then I'm seeing you going, hey, I'm over here. I'm sitting right here. Or what's going on? What's going on? I mean, that's how proactive Marissa always was in the unit. And she continues to be that proactive, doing her advocacy. I mean, what we do really matters. So if you are going to learn anything from this episode, if you know that someone actually needs to hear this episode, make sure you like, comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Okay, without further ado, first question, Marissa. Can you explain to us what is actually happening to our metabolism, our body composition, when hormones start to shift in perimenopause and menopause?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to always start with defining what perimenopause is versus menopause, because I think these terms tend to be used interchangeably and they don't always mean the same thing. So I always like to be clear about that. So perimenopause is the years leading up to menopause. So think of it as this is when you start feeling symptoms, seeing changes in your menstrual cycle, the intensity, all these things. And so perimenopause is the years leading up. So that could be 2 to 10 years. Yeah, I said 10 years. I know. That sounds horrible.
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight for anybody who does not have a functioning uterus, translation that you've had some surgery, such as myself,
right,
where I had sort of a partial hyst. You're going to lose your period early, but you're still going to have some hormones. Your symptoms of perimenopause may be super different and weird. It's
right,
different for everybody. I can tell you, like, it just might be brain fog or a lot of joint aches and pains. So think
right,
a little bit outside the box with what Marissa is saying.
We'll address that too, because there's also medical menopause, where some women, when they've had the full hysterectomy, ovaries removed and everything, they jump right into menopause. There's really no transition. So brave warriors, us women. But menopause essentially is just one day. It is the 12-month anniversary since your last menstrual period. Boom. And next day, post-menopause. No big party, no woohoo, like it's just biology. And during perimenopause, too, these years leading up to that day, there are two main components in women's hormones I'd like to talk about, and that's estrogen and progesterone. They begin to fluctuate. And these shifts can trigger a wide range of symptoms, kind of like what you were alluding to with the brain fog, muscle aches, joint pain, frozen shoulder syndrome. You'd be surprised how many different symptoms can relate back to perimenopause. Some women, for the first time in their life in this age, are diagnosed with IBS during this time. Same thing can be said about ADHD and certain mental health concerns. So it's very interesting how perimenopause can exacerbate some of these symptoms that we've already had. So when it comes to metabolism piece, estrogen, specifically estradiol, plays a major role here. That is our major estrogen that is kind of the dictator of all our estrogen. It's the major one that's in our body. So these levels change during perimenopause. So that can affect lean muscle mass. It's also very important as we age too. And like you were saying,
I'm loving the mug. I got to interject and say I love the mug. I can't.
Yes, I purposely brought it today because
a very important convo. I'm like, wait, pause for the mug.
Yes. Pause for the mug. What was this from? Season 1?
You were episode 1 in season 3.
Woohoo! I love that. So the mug is very important as we talk about perimenopause because there's coffee in here. I need caffeination just like you do, and it's early in the day, so it won't impact my sleep later on. And I can also talk about the benefits of coffee in another time because we love coffee around here. So going back to estradiol, our main estrogen that happens to fluctuate during perimenopause, it does impact our lean muscle mass, which is especially important as we age, kind of like what you were talking about before, because muscle is what we call metabolically active, meaning that it is easier for us to maintain our body weight the more muscle mass that we have. Because you and I resting right now, we're both, muscle mommies, we're gym baddies. We like to develop all of these muscles with strength training. The more we have right now, you and I are sitting here, we're burning more calories than maybe other people who don't have as much muscle mass. So it's really important that we have this as we age too to prevent fragility. And of course, estradiol as well does help regulate our blood sugar. It helps regulate our appetite, which has a big impact on our overall health, which can also include the risk of weight gain as well as diabetes. I also like to put out there, because I do specialize in GI, it's one of my favorite things to work with people on. Perimenopause and GI do go hand in hand. It does affect what we call the estrobolome, which is a group of gut bacteria that is responsible for breaking down estrogen and progesterone, and it recycles it back to our bloodstream. So as these hormone levels fluctuate during this phase, the estrobolome can be disrupted. So this can worsen your symptoms. It can impact your appetite regulation, your weight. So when more estrogen is effectively recycled, it may help support hormone regulation and your symptom management. So a more diverse gut microbiome may also support a healthier estrobolome, potentially helping the body better retain and regulate estrogen and progesterone. So last but not least, though, as estrogen levels decline, the liver also produces less sex hormone binding globulin. This leads to higher levels of what we call androgens, such as testosterone, which you may have heard of, which, by the way, testosterone is not a male hormone. There's no such thing as male or female hormones. It's what is existing predominantly in our bodies. So testosterone can increase our visceral fat, can contribute to that, which is the kind of fat that is stored around our organs and abdominal area that we don't want. That's linked to chronic disease.
Interesting. Can I ask a little bit more about testosterone? Just because when I spoke with my primary, she's like, there's not great data for testosterone supplementation, but I do know that some women work with hormone replacement specialists who do endorse testosterone supplementation as they're contemplating hormone replacement as part of that. Can you comment a bit on the significance of that, where your stance is?
Yeah, I have definitely heard some controversy about testosterone because many providers refuse to prescribe it. I know also, too, from what I have read, that there's a very limited availability of female dose-appropriate testosterone. So it's very hard, even with the compounding, because a lot of the doses we have are more based for men's health. And as you know, men tend to have much higher levels of testosterone than women do. So it can be really challenging to break some doses in half or make them super small for an appropriate dose for a woman. But it is beneficial for our, muscle mass and overall just our health, because we do, as women, still have testosterone in our bodies and we still need it. So there is some science about that that's promoting it as a possibility.
Interesting, because if we're losing these other hormones and testosterone is more predominant, and then that can lead to changes in fat deposition. I'm just trying to reconcile those two statements together.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. So it's about also finding the middle ground here, the balance. So I wouldn't say, just start testosterone just for the sake of it, especially if you are very symptomatic during perimenopause, because you still need additional support from estrogen and progesterone as well. So it doesn't dismiss that you still need these hormones, but for some women, testosterone can also be very beneficial.
Interesting. Okay. So it sounds like we may need to adjust and look at some of the newer literature on how all of these hormones may play a role and how supplementation depending on the
Right.
situation and per patient, maybe the more appropriate kind of thing. Okay. So maybe, because I have thought, I'm like, should I be maybe contemplating, a more formal evaluation? I just started hormone. I'm not shy about it. I just started some hormone replacement therapy with my primary. Honestly, I think what I've noticed more than anything else, which is I think my brain fog is a scotch better, like a scotch. And I also noticed that the delayed onset muscle soreness stuff, the DOM stuff that has plagued me is a scotch better. Like I really,
Right.
I mean, for the first time last week, I was able to actually like squat 100 pounds and not be completely dead for like a
Right.
week after. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
it's so frustrating.
It is frustrating. And, I do like to add as well that testosterone in females is like biological females, I want to make clear, is produced in the ovaries or people with ovaries and adrenal glands. So it is the primary androgen that's responsible for the development of male characteristics, as we know. But for women, it can also promote muscle growth and bone density, which are just as important for women. But also, I like to address too that testosterone can also help with lowered libido. That can happen during this time as well.
I think my husband would like that. Oh, God, I'm so getting canceled for this episode. Hilarious. And what I'd love to talk about next, moving on a little bit to nutrition, but thank you for that. There's some new U.S. nutrition guidelines, and
Right.
And I may politically really disagree with the individual who's responsible for these changes significantly, but he's not getting it all wrong. Put to you that way.
Right.
There are more real, minimally processed foods, higher protein, cutting back on ultra processed, like all this stuff, added sugars, all these things. I like the fact that we're kind of really readdressing it.
Right.
What do you think actually matters most for midlife women who are trying to protect their sleep and trying to protect their weight?
I will preface this too. I agree with you. I do not agree with the individual that's in charge of all these guidelines because, as you and I both know, we're both medical providers and we practice evidence-based science. And this particular person doesn't have that background, unfortunately. But, it does not mean that the guidelines we need to completely trash and throw out and start from anew. Because minimally processed foods, they are great. But we also at the same time live in the real world. Time, budget, preferences, and life do matter. They do influence our choices and our ability to achieve health. That's where what we call the social determinants of health come in, and they are just as important to address because not everyone can afford organic food, which, by the way, is not any healthier than non-organic. So it's just when I work with clients, the goal here is consistency and not perfection. Yes, eating fewer ultra-processed foods, prioritizing protein, and cutting back on added sugars is helpful, especially since perimenopause is an inflammatory phase of life. But adding in more omega-3 rich foods can also make a real difference, as well as positively impacting our gut health. But that said, some of these guidelines fall short when it comes to evidence-based nutrition, especially around dairy and meat. I don't believe in cutting foods out. But pushing only full-fat dairy makes it nearly impossible to keep your saturated fat under the recommended daily 10% of your total calories. Because as we all know, too much saturated fat isn't great for heart health. And many women in this stage are already seeing negative changes to their cholesterol. And can I add in, can we please, for the love of God, can we stop demonizing carbs? Like, I am so sick of carbs being demonized. The guidelines barely emphasize fiber and they drastically cut back on carbs, which makes no sense to me because our brains literally run on carbs. I don't know if you've seen that reel or meme on the internet with Ryan Gosling. It's a scene from a movie that he was in and he's like, you need carbs. Your brain runs on carbs. And I'm like, and dietitians love to reuse it because it's just how we feel about carbs because we need them for energy. And fiber is a part of carbohydrates too. And it's especially critical during perimenopause because it helps manage our cholesterol, stabilize our blood sugar, support our gut health, improves that fullness feeling we're looking for, and it keeps our digestion regular, and it can even reduce cancer risk.
And there's
But also
carbohydrates in literally everything. And like, this whole concept, like, I'm going to avoid all these fruits, right? Is insane to me. Yes, you're getting some sugar with that, but also you're getting a ton of fiber. And the way you're absorbing it changes when you have the fiber with the sweet.
Right.
It's a nice treat.
Yes, absolutely. Fruit is fantastic. I love it. It's also got lots of vitamins and minerals that we desperately need as humans. So to cut out entire food groups is never a good idea. And I also like to address with these guidelines too, is they tend to villainize artificial sweeteners. In moderation, they're safe, and the current science supports that. There is no data out there that it is linked, to cancer or any of those sorts of things. The amount you would have to drink, I talk about this all the time with my clients, would be nearly impossible for it to induce any form of harm. So they can be a part of a healthy diet, especially if you love that diet soda. I know I love my Cherry Coke Zero. I'm not going to give it up. So don't fear these particular types of drinks either.
Do they comment on anything about pasteurization? I know there's some viewpoints of the person. So I'm curious.
I don't think it's addressed. I can double check, but I do not think it's addressed in there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell everyone right now, please consume pasteurized dairy products. It's not killing the nutrition of these things. It's actually keeping you safe, please. Okay. And if the raw milk people want to come after me, I don't care. Okay. Turn away. Don't listen to me. But I don't know why you have that attitude about it. I don't think that's really real.
Food safety is here to help us. There's a reason humans live longer with these advances in food technology.
Yeah. And if you've been someone who has had the misfortune of being trained to care for critically ill patients, not misfortune, but it's very, very difficult when you get a case and you're like, OMG, this is some sort of an ingestion.
Yep.
People can die.
I've seen a lot of liver failure.
Yeah, very serious complications related to not adhering to dietary safety recommendations. They're there for a reason. Science shows it. So let's be evidence-based again.
Absolutely. And of course, the evidence-based science surrounding nutrition is not sexy. It's very basic. It's very nuanced. It's not black or white. And so the stuff that we talk about, it doesn't sound new or exciting. So it may not be something sometimes people want to hear because they're like, well, I've tried that already. Or it just doesn't seem to work for them, even though it needs some consistency there.
So if there are like one or two things, however many you want to talk about, but if there are some key components that people can say, okay, I'm hearing you. You said protein, you say, reduce the ultra processed foods.
Right.
What am I looking at in terms of what I really like that you emphasize, by the way, Marissa, is being practical about it. And by that, I think what I hear you say, because I think it's important to just vocalize this, is that we really need to stop judging ourselves when we're not, quote, perfect, and not talk badly about ourselves or judge ourselves because we're not adhering to something 100%. What's the practical advice that you have for people listening today that they can do pretty much right now that are guidelines-based, evidence-based, that you think can really start to move the needle?
Absolutely. So I also like to say as well that this stage of life can be very mentally tough. It often feels like what I like to refer to as puberty in reverse. You're going to get to know a brand new, isn't it great? It's you're learning a brand new body again, it feels like, and you're dealing with a lot of changes. It is not just physically, but socially at home too. Like this is the part of life. There's a lot of transitions that can happen during this age. College-bound kids, maybe you have a career change. Maybe you're taking care of aging parents, and now you have to deal with your own body changes on top of all of this. It's a lot. So that's why I always like to talk about having support that really matters, whether it's a mental health provider, friends who are going through the same transition, a partner just someone you trust, because making lifestyle changes is hard and none of us are meant to do it alone. And we need that accountability, comfort, and support. So that being said, of course, we talked about protein-rich food at each meal. I think that's a pretty doable thing, especially for the sleep piece. If we are talking about tryptophan that comes from our protein-rich foods that can help us support our sleep, things like turkey, chicken, fish, eggs, which, by the way, eggs are also rich in melatonin, which can help us fall asleep, cheese, and you don't have to have just animal-based products either. The plant-based is just as fine, like edamame or tofu. And no, you don't need to fear soy. Research shows that there's no link to cancer risk, and it may even help ease hot flashes while supporting your bone, heart, and brain health. And on top of this, peanuts, quinoa, and pumpkin seeds are also great for tryptophan. So I love to address that with sleep. And then, of course, I like to add in about the fish. Fish, fantastic. Love them. The fatty fish particularly, just because they are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory, which can help manage the inflammatory nature of the perimenopause transition. And it can support your healthy cholesterol levels. It can promote gut health, which can increase what we call short-chain fatty acid production in the colon, which what they do is they help strengthen our gut barrier. They help reduce inflammation, and they may even have anti-cancer properties. So remember when we were talking about the estrobolome before, the gut bacteria, all of this is working in tandem together. But if you aren't a fan of fatty fish, like myself, I get it, salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, they're not for everybody. You could still get omega-3s from plant-based sources as well. So we're talking flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts. Just keep in mind, though, that they aren't as efficient as fish-based omega-3s because the body has to convert them into a usable form. So in those cases, too, I may talk with my clients about an omega-3 supplement, and that's always something we discuss, too, with a healthcare professional before starting. So that's kind of the two things that we could start with. But one of the biggest things, too, I like to address as well is ideally eliminating, or even just cutting back, which also is in line with the guidelines, is cutting back on alcohol. It can make such a huge difference. I know. I love an espresso martini, chef's kiss. It just does not provide meaningful nutrition. It can poorly affect your mood. It can negatively impact your sleep. I know you are a huge expert in that area, and it's linked to several different types of cancer. It just adversely impacts our heart health. It disrupts multiple body systems. It can reduce nutrient absorption, slow our fat burning, and contribute to weight gain. So if anything, those are the two things at least we can start on, is the protein and cutting back on the alcohol.
What do you think about an evening snack for some people? And, if you were to devise a snack that you think is sort of sleep promoting. I've always talked about the fact that there was a very small study looking at kiwis, for example, but really I think it's the fiber in the kiwis.
Yes.
You mentioned some of these turkey options, dairy, milk products, those things you can think about. Greek yogurt. Sometimes I talk about with my sleep patients. I may say, okay, maybe some Greek yogurt with, a smattering of a little granola, because again, carbs are not the devil, and who doesn't love a nice crunch with some fresh berries?
Right.
Just something like that is typically what I might talk to them about, because I know that certainly I like to do. I wasn't sure if you had any other thoughts. Typically what I recommend is timing, is just try to keep it a couple hours before bed, just so you have enough time to digest and make it small.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because sleep quality and duration can improve when you cut back on the ultra-processed foods, but also too with the nighttime eating. As you know, we don't want to eat too close to bedtime, especially if you have any history of reflux, because that can worsen. Reflux is laying down too quickly and then you're up all night. But also when we have food in our stomach, our body's going to focus on digestion and it's going to keep you awake. So we don't want to eat too close to bed. So no large meals, But yes, a small snack, like maybe 2 hours before bed, could be very helpful. A lot of people benefit from it, especially if you do have a history of diabetes, for example, just to help not wake up in the middle of the night because your blood sugars are low. So if we pair I always tell my clients for a snack, it's obviously going to be smaller than a meal. We want to pair some sort of carbohydrate. So that could be a fruit, it could be a starchy veggie, it could be a whole grain, what have you, and some sort of protein or fat. Usually a lot of these snacks have a little bit of both. So for example, like a cheese stick definitely has some protein, but also has some fat. And also there's a little bit of carbs in that too. You don't have to eat that by itself, of course, but maybe you pair it with some whole grain crackers just to give you that crunch and that satisfaction you're looking for, to give you that fullness, but also balance your blood sugars and make you feel better before you go to sleep.
Now I want to get into the GLP-1s a little bit. When should people even really be pulling the trigger on that?
Okay. So I do recognize that there are limits to focusing on nutrition and lifestyle alone during perimenopause. I'm a strong advocate for women, and I want them to learn about and talk with their medical provider about menopausal hormone therapy. I do not call it hormone replacement therapy because we are not replacing anything. We are supplementing what your body is no longer creating. So, for example, think of perimenopause as an estrogen deficiency. Think of it like if you had a vitamin D deficiency, you would try to eat more vitamin D rich foods or supplement, or both. Same thing can be said about perimenopause. Obviously, we can't eat our estrogen, so we do need a supplement of some sort to kind of help even all of that out. So I am a big advocate saying, hey, let's have a discussion with your medical provider and talk about menopausal hormone therapy. For many, it can have a major impact on symptoms, sleep, mood, weight, and overall quality of life. So if we recognize that perimenopause is a state of estrogen deficiency, it can make sense to at least consider it. And I generally recommend this before considering a GLP-1 for a variety of reasons. So for example, if your estrogen levels are dropping during perimenopause and your weight is a concern, replacing estrogen may help. It may not be the silver bullet that solves all your problems, but it can provide also additional health benefits. And to be clear, GLPs are not a bad option at all. But during this stage of life, addressing the root cause of perimenopause often makes sense because menopausal hormone therapy can be continued long-term to maintain its benefits. So I will shout this. This is a hill I will die on because we've had crappy science from the 2000s that scared so many women from starting this. And it makes me sad for certain generations of women, some boomers actually, that were too afraid to go on it because of the poor science and how it was delivered to the news. So even though menopausal hormone therapy could be helpful, some people still need that additional support from GLP-1s. Lifestyle still does matter, though, with GLP-1s as well, because without changes to nutrition and movement, you may lose the weight, but you also may lose muscle, which is incredibly important as we age to reduce fragility. So rapid weight loss can also lead to things like facial changes. You may have heard of the phrase Ozempic face. It can also increase the risk of vitamin deficiencies. And in my case, I can see malnutrition a mile away. Hair loss, sarcopenia, osteoporosis is a big one that we worry about in this population. But for some people, these medications may need to be taken long-term as a maintenance dose. But some of them are also very expensive, so it may not be sustainable. And also there's significant side effects for some people as well. So it may not be something that some people can stay on forever. So you still have to address the overall foundational things. And I also like to point out, as well as a dietitian, because I'm hyper aware of this, is that if you have a difficult relationship with food, if you struggle with body image or you experience food noise, I strongly, please take this seriously. Work with a qualified mental health provider. Work with a registered dietitian who specializes in this before considering a GLP-1. Because if these underlying issues are not addressed and the medication is stopped, weight regain is very likely. And also GLP-1s are also contraindicated for active eating disorders. So yes, GLP-1s can be a helpful tool for the right person, especially someone who hasn't been, who has been consistent with their lifestyle changes and isn't seeing results, or maybe isn't a candidate for menopausal hormone therapy, or even has medical conditions like type 2 diabetes. I've also started to see that it's being used for patients with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. I know on your end, I've been seeing marketing for obstructive sleep apnea, for Zepbound, for example. So I'm just overall a big advocate for bodily autonomy and informed decision-making, and I'll never judge someone for the choices they make about their health.
What a great ending to a terrific conversation. Really, that's the key. I mean, and what I try to emphasize for my patients when I'm counseling them is GLP-1s, I look at them as you're doing the heavy lift, you're doing the hard work. And as your body starts making it more challenging for you, it sort of helps you fight that biologic urge to kind of hang on to fat, just because our bodies are from caveman days, but we live in 2026. We live in the land of plenty. But the reason we're here living is because our ancestors were like, oh, you need to hang on to that. You've got some nutrition. We need to use it. So our efficiency now is kind of leading in part to what's going on, coupled with societal, cultural issues related to our diets, et cetera. But where can people find you so that they can begin to work with you? And which states are you seeing patients in?
Oh, that's a great question. So I am on Instagram. So it's the Gutsy, Gutsy _dietitian on Instagram. I also have a free meal prep guide for busy adults on the link in my Instagram if you want to sign up for that, for my free newsletter as well. Newsletter hasn't started yet, but we're working on it. It's in the works. And then, of course, my website. So that is www.marissa, Marissa -Sharkey, shark like the animal, and EY, nutrition.com. Also, you can email me at support@marissa-sharkeynutrition.com. So there's other ways you can contact me, but I also take most major medical insurances, and I do have licenses in so many different states. If you're not sure, you can always ask me, but I am located in New Jersey, and I do provide telehealth. So I can see clients in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Texas. Right now I'm working on getting North Carolina, Washington, Georgia, and there was one more. There's so many applications out there right now. And then I also am licensed in Florida. And of course, there's many other states where licensure laws aren't as strict. So if you're not sure, just ask me. I could tell you if I could see you or not.
Wonderful. You know where to find her. All of her contact information is going to be in the description as well. I have one more parting question for you.
Sure.
What's one sentence you wish every woman would replace in their internal script about aging?
Ooh, this is a good one. I believe that aging is a profound privilege, and menopause is a new beginning where, despite your genetic blueprint, your daily self-care becomes the power that keeps you visible and thriving.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Marissa. You are amazing. I just love you. I love being able to reconnect with you. Thank you for being on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love chatting with you.
Struggling with sleep? Dr. Kole is here to help. Whether you need a comprehensive sleep coaching program, suspect you have sleep apnea, or simply seeking a second opinion, she's available for consultation in New Jersey, New York, California, and Georgia, with more states coming soon. Schedule your free 10-minute review of services today to find out which visit is right for you at AskTheSleepMD.com and start your journey to better sleep with a trusted sleep expert.
Please be advised that the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for personalized guidance. For my full disclaimer, please visit AskTheSleepMD.com. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter. Sweet dreams and happy listening.